Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the originals. So in this episode, basically as a means of rooting out any who might be following the Hollow, the Michaelsons decide to kind of throw a little shindig, kind of basically make it under the false pretense of like, hey, actually, us and Marcel, we've come to an understanding. Like we're keeping it peaceful, and everyone's invited. Obviously, like I said, it's a trap to find out who's working for the Hollow. Initially, this was actually Elijah and Vincent's idea, which Vincent reluctantly accepts because it's like for him, it's like. I mean, he makes it plenty apparent throughout the entire episode because it's like he's only working with the Michaelsons because it's like I downright hate Klaus. I hate the Michaelsons and everything they've done and represent. I hate them, but the fact of the matter is, if I'm joining sides with them, that shows you just how much, like, this thing that people are working with the Hollow, just how bad it is in comparison. What I thought was really interesting was, like, the approach that Elijah wanted to take with this whole situation, because he's asking Klaus, because Klaus is, like, obviously, like, ready to kill. He's like, yeah, I'll get all our enemies gathered up and everything, and we take them out. And Costa's like, yeah, I brutally murdered him. And then Elijah's like, brother, don't do that. And it's like, why not? The fact of the matter is, they've come after my daughter. They've come after our family. It's like, why not? We can't just let their attacks on us go unanswered. But for Elijah, it's like, no. Basically, kind of reiterating what he brought up last episode when it came to Marcel. It's like, hope is his redemption. It's like, the last thing you want to do is slip back into being that person, because you want to stay this person for Hope's sake. Because in Hope's eyes, you're her hero, you're her knight in shining armor, and it's like you don't want her to see you any other way. Don't let her see that monster side of you that a lot of people have come to see that side of you, the side that everyone fears you because of. So he's like, if anything, he's like, let me handle it. If there's anyone that threatens our family, let me deal with it. And Klaus was like, okay. It's like, once again, Elijah entering big brother mode. So obviously Vincent uses a spell to kind of track out some of the people. Obviously he picks out Dominic. I was actually quite surprised about the whole Sophia situation. Sophia was very open about, like, yeah, I'm working with the Hollow. I was like, really? I thought she would have just kind of been a little more deceitful and everything. She even pointed out, like, hey, these thorns on my hands, yeah, they're dipped in Marcel's blood. They can be used to kill you. So, for a second there, I was wondering what that, like, obviously they're doing that whole tango. It's kind of like a enemies kind of dancing type of situation. I was like, is that... It Costa's going to try and turn that into something, is he? That's not going to, like, in a weird way, turn into something where it's like she might end up, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how, it's weird. Like, there was some point in my brain, I was like, is this going to be, like, some weird way to get back at Marcel? Because obviously Marcel's pretending like he doesn't care about Sophia, saying the fact of the matter is that she is just... it's just business for her, and it's like, oh, we have fun, which is like, no, you deeply care about each other. So now, like, the way she was acting kind of makes me think, so this isn't just some ploy. She legitimately does care for Marcel. Which I was like, I hope that's the case there, because she was like, no, we needed, like, Marcel was never supposed to be a part of this deal. So I'm thinking, like, that is the case, that there is some part of her that legitimately cares for Marcel. And I think Klaus can kind of see that, and even Klaus can see it the way Marcel was saying that he didn't care for her, that it was simply business. You could see Klaus kind of looking at him like, almost like, yeah, you're not fooling me. So, but I was thinking, like, oh, is he going to try and, like, make a move on her just to kind of spite Marcel? I mean, but it turned out not to be that situation. It's just kind of, once again, enemies dancing and just being like, oh, threatening each other type of situation. Kind of like about the relationship aspect to it. So that's the best thing that at least comes to my mind right now to kind of compare that to. I know it's such a weird thing to, like, reference it towards, but nevertheless. We still have no idea exactly who the Hollow is, but this episode did kind of give us a little more insight into why the Hollow is here. The Hollow is here because it wants to get its body back. It wants to join the mortal realm once again. Because in its spirit form, yes, it has access to a lot of power, but it's not nearly as powerful as it would be if it was present, like fully present in this world. So it's all about trying to bring itself back. And obviously the whole Marcel and Klaus situation, obviously the kids and everything. The kids, that's just kind of like to fend off its appetite, but really it needs someone powerful like Marcel, or at the very least any of the originals, to die, to feed off the magical energy from them, to get its body back, to bring itself back to full force. So at first, like, you have Dominic talking with Elijah. I mean, granted, after him and Vincent kind of went at it like that. I am curious to know, I doubt Klaus has told him, but I'm very curious I mean, if it didn't happen in this episode, I'm curious to see if it happened next episode. But if Klaus will tell Marcel about the fact is that Sophia was working with the Hollow and everything, I feel like he'd say that just to kind of wound him a little bit, but also like tell him about like Dominic. It's like, oh yeah, the guy you thought was actually helping you. Like, yeah, he's been working with the Hollow the entire time too, for the purposes of trying to destroy my family. So. Because it also puts in perspective, it's like, yeah, like Marcel's death is needed too. So it's like, oh, you can't necessarily trust a woman that loves you. But once again, it's like, and I do say love because, you know, you don't just do this over someone you like. There's definitely something there. But I can't tell whether, like I said, I can't tell whether she's sincere or whether everything is just some big plan, you know? It's like, because it seemed like she was handing over all her weapons and stuff like that to get Marcel released. And I'm like, so does that mean you actually, like, I don't know, like, because she was like, I thought Klaus was going to keep up his side of the bargain, which is kind of like, kind of should have seen that coming. I mean, it's kind of the reason why you had Elijah being like, yeah, I'm not making this deal with you, Dominic, because I don't, how do I know for sure that you're going to keep up your side of the deal? And he's like, oh, you know, which is a very, very valid response. But it seems like more so than anything, it's like Marcel can wait. At the very least, they want Vincent now. At least the Hollow does, because it's like, yeah, obviously the Hollow let him do what he wants to, but now I think it's a situation where it's like Vincent's kind of getting in the way, and also because it's just like he turned his back on the Hollow, and it's like, yeah, he kind of needs to be punished for that, or at the very least, it's going to try and take back control of him or something like that. I mean, it makes you wonder because Vincent's like one of the most powerful witches that's kind of around. I mean, this could easily put him and Freya in the Hollow's sights. I mean, to be fair though, like, it seems like most people who are with the Hollow, it seems like it seems like a willing thing. It doesn't seem like it's like they're a force per se. It's just like, hey, this thing can give me power, give me the power I need to. Obviously, everyone's got their respective reasoning for doing what they're doing. So, I mean, because later on, like, obviously Freya ended up helping out Haley with this whole situation with her family, like helping her like get some answers and stuff like that. And so she does a reading, and Haley ends up remembering obviously something from when she was a baby when her parents were killed and her mom and dad died, but her dad threw a key down in between the space between the floor. This in turn leads her to a storage unit, which leads her to like a teddy bear, which within that teddy bear is a jaw, which we can obviously, I mean, it ends up being like, yep, they figured out like, yep, this thing has been searching for its body parts. Essentially, like, obviously it's a witch and it needs its body parts to come back to life. So basically, because, you know, Vincent did a little tracking throughout the history of New Orleans, that basically this thing's been around for a while and it's constantly been killing people. Like, I mean, doing this whole sacrificing thing, like, in sets of 4. Every so often. So I can't remember if it's this show specifically or something else. It might have been something else, but I feel like it was this one where I mentioned, like, I get the feeling like the Hollow can only enter the world every so often, like in its current form. Like, it only has so much power that allows it to do so much before it kind of has to back down and let its powers recharge. Like, once again, like, it's limited in its form, but once it gets its human body back, then it's kind of like, hey, almighty and all powerful. So that's why it seems like so sporadic throughout the years. It's like, oh, this, and that. Like, even Vince is like, yeah, because it's spaced out like that and done in such a specific way. It's like, unless you knew what you were looking for, you wouldn't notice, like, oh, there's a pattern here. So I'm guessing it's moving in on the final pieces of its body. Obviously, Haley's parents had one piece, which they obviously were hiding. So the way it put it, it was like, her dad put it, was kind of like, oh yeah, you can't let him get the 4. And I was like, wait, what's that? So I was like, I guess there's 4 pieces. It turns out one of said pieces is the dagger, which interestingly enough, like, Klaus didn't use on Marcel. I mean, it's like poetic justice would be like, oh yeah, using it on him like he used it on you, but Klaus didn't. I mean, obviously he's all threatening everyone else. It's like, oh, I could use it on Josh, I could use it on Vincent, I can use it on the woman you care about, Sophia. But then again, it's like he all he did was talk big. Like, he's threatening him and threatening people. But I think at the end of the day, it's like no matter what he says, he still can't harm Marcel. And I don't know if Marcel's really realized that yet. So it's like he actually does, like, still care about him, and obviously that's still his weakness, which Elijah knows better than anyone. But along those lines, obviously he never released Marcel at the end of the episode. Obviously, Josh helps Sophia figure it out that, like, yeah, he's down there, he's just cloaked and we just can't see him or get to him. So, but Sophia did reveal, like, what her problem is with Klaus. Like, 500 years ago, he massacred, like, he killed her sister at her wedding or something like that. So, no surprise. But you had that moment where Klaus is almost just like, oh, like, I am truly sorry about that. Had that look on his face, but then, like, she walks away and you see that sad look on his face because it's like, once again, who he was, that monster in the past, is coming back to haunt him. And I guess it's a situation where it's like, no matter how much he changes now, he can't run from his past. And the fact of the matter is, eventually that past will catch up to his daughter. I think that's what's there. And also at the same time, it's because I guess he also sees that maybe this is giving Klaus too much credit, but I get the feeling like he sees how much she cares about, well, she even said it herself, like, yeah, like, my hate for you has run a lot longer than I've known Marcel, so don't think that you using Marcel as a hostage will get me to back down completely. Overplay your hand, I will come after you because my hate runs that deep for you, so granted, she's not the only one, so. And then there was that whole conversation with Freya and Vincent. I think this is like their first time like really talking subsequently since the whole Davina thing. Maybe they talked last season. I don't remember. But it's like obviously she's thanking him. It's like, thank you for helping my family out and everything, because obviously he was able to track down, you know, some of the Hollow followers and stuff like that. But for him, he's like, no, like, I'm only doing this because of the kids that are being hurt and everything. I'm not, and you know, as well as for Hope, but I'm not doing it for you or your family. I don't give a damn about you guys. Once it's all said and done, we're done. Get away from me. Which Freya's like, you're still worried, you're mad about the whole Davina thing. She's like, yes, I'm sorry that happened, but it had to happen because the fact of the matter is I had to protect my family. And basically it's like, you can't do anything in this life without sacrifice, you know, whether it's surviving or protecting those you care about, it comes with sacrifice, which Vincent doesn't see it that way, but I guess more so than anything because he knows sacrifice because what's been sacrificed by him of the Hollow. So that's why I'm sure like her actions and stuff like that, he kind of looks at him in similar fashion of like, what makes, doesn't, you know, you're a lesser evil to the Hollows, so it's like, for now, I'll deal with you and your family, like, that's kind of just been his thing, so. And speaking of Freya, in this episode, we do see her and Keeling kind of getting closer. Like, before, like, I kept bringing it up. It's like, maybe I was reading too much in that situation, but as time goes on, I'm like, maybe I'm not reading too much into it. Maybe it is going beyond friendship. I mean, like I brought up, it's like, either way, it's like, that's something that, you know, Freya doesn't really have much experience with, whether it be like a significant other or as well as like a friend in general. Because it's interesting because Keeling brought up, like, you know, because obviously she saw the whole situation with Elijah, like, basically making a spectacle of Dominic. It's like, yeah, look at this guy, he's with the Hollow. The fact of the matter is, you know, the Hollow is a danger to everyone, so it's like, maybe you should kind of, like, if you find anyone who works for the Hollow, maybe you should do what I'm about to do. Sticks his hand in his chest, rips out his heart, drops his body. Literally did it in front of the entire party. I'm actually surprised that Dominic didn't stay dead. I was like, oh, that's just the end of him. It's like, no, he isn't the quote-unquote high priest for nothing amongst, like, the Hollows, like, hierarchy or whatever the case may be. So I mean, because basically the whole thing was a plan to steal that dagger. Because, like, if I didn't bring it up before, obviously the blade being part of the Hollow, another piece of the Hollow. Once again, wondering, was Sophia part of that plan or not? Was that something that she really wasn't aware of? I mean, I feel like she was kind of playing Klaus with the whole giving him all her weapons and stuff like that. Like, but then again, like I said, it seems like, you know, everyone's in their own particular situation because, like, obviously she's working with the Hollow because she wants to get revenge on the Michaelsons, in particular Klaus. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess, like, you know, once again, like, that's why I'm, like, debating. It's, like, it's hard to say whether or not her feelings for Marcel are genuine. I've said it, like, last episode. I do hope they are. I hope that that's a real thing and not just, you know, Marcel's pretending like it isn't because I guess he doesn't want to take the chance. So, like, oh, it turns into something else, that it does turn into something serious. Or, at the very least, he just wanted to kind of fool Klaus. But nevertheless, the point I was going to make is the fact is that Keelan was like, yeah, she understands what it's like to come from a violent family, werewolves and everything. So she's like, she distanced herself from her family, went off, became a doctor. I mean, studied to be a doctor and everything, just to kind of distance herself from her family. It's like, to more so than anything, to prove to herself that, like, hey, I can have a life outside of this. That I don't have to be just tied down to who my family is and what they do, that I can have my own life. And she's like, Freya, you can do the same thing too, which you have Freya being like, not really giving an answer, because I think for Freya, it's like, she doesn't know what that would be. Like, I think she doesn't really know if she can live, like I brought up before, like, her family is all she really has. She doesn't have anyone outside of that. Once again, the only people she talks to outside of the family are connected to protecting the family. So it's like she doesn't really interact with people, and it's like she doesn't have a life outside of that. She hasn't. So it's like, for her, she probably doesn't know what it really means to live, kind of, for something other than protecting her family. So I mean, maybe Keelan will be kind of the one that I mean, I think that's where the story's headed, and like, hey, kind of take her down a different path. Hopefully, once again, I brought this up before, like, I hope she doesn't turn out to actually be part of the Hollow. I mean, Vincent went around the party, but I doubt Vincent saw everyone. I'm sure when I get the feeling like there were, like, maybe he just did come across Keelan, but I'm hoping with fingers crossed that she isn't a part of this, like, because that would suck, because it's like, oh yeah, maybe she's trying to separate Freya from the rest of the family so that she can kind of push her to be more on the Hollow side, or at the very least weaken the Michaelson's defenses or something like that. But once again, same situation with Sophia Marcel. I hope this is a genuine situation. Like, this whole circumstance, I mean, that's the thing about this whole Hollow situation. You don't know who to trust. I mean, you saw with the whole Will situation. Wasn't expecting that twist of like, oh, he's in contact with the Hollow. But the fact is, the Hollow tells you what you want to hear. It taps into that darkness inside you, and it feeds off of it. It feeds that darkness. But another fascinating thing that came out of this episode, since I brought it up earlier, the whole Dominic situation with Elijah, the fact of the matter is, it was Elijah that did that. Like, obviously, he made it clear from the very beginning of the episode. Like, as every time he kept telling Klaus, like, don't do something, brother, let me handle this. Like, obviously, Elijah's the more diplomatic amongst the siblings. He's quick to kind of, like, he always puts his words first before he proceeds to killing people. But, obviously, he did that this time, but, he ends up telling it to Vincent later on. He's like, I'm done bargaining, because this is something, the Hollow is something that can't be bargained with. From here on out, let's get rid of reason. That basically, this almost like this is a full-blown war, and it's like, are you kind of holding his hand out for Vincent, but Vincent kind of walks away, because, once again, it's just like, he doesn't like the Michael's tactics and stuff like that. I mean, because the surprise was the fact that Klaus himself was not that one. Like, he had an opportunity to kill 2 followers, but he decided not to, because what Elijah had told him. Obviously, because it's like, the more followers that are alive, the more who can tell you stuff about the Hollow. But, because you almost saw a look on his face when he saw what Elijah did. But like, why would you do? Because I think in a sense, it's also because it's like, you're telling me to be a better person because of hope. I think on some level, Klaus is like, you need to do the same thing, brother. That, the fact of the matter is, hope, you're part of the family too, so you can't be letting your darkness kind of control it. That's how I'm seeing it. So, just like I said, the roles are being reversed like that. So like, you see Klaus trying his best to be a better role model for his little girl, and I like I said, I kind of get the feeling he's trying to make the rest of the family kind of do the same thing too. It's like last thing I want is you going around just killing people, brother, even if it's for the sake of protecting family, because that's also a conversation Haley had with him. It's like, we need to stop doing just whatever it takes for the sake of protecting our family. Like, we don't have to just sacrifice other people as well as just kill relentlessly to protect our family. I mean, granted, the second one's, that's kind of me throwing that in there, so I mean, it might not be really much of a choice being presented to them. So I'm very curious to see how all these developments turn out. Finding out who was the Hollow in the past. Why were they sealed away? I mean, once again, I can only assume like it's a situation where it's like, oh, you're a powerful witch. You kind of got too big for your britches, and people got super pissed about it. That's typically how these things go down. It's like, you're probably like super caught up on your power and everything like that. I mean, for all we know, it might turn out to be a situation where it's like, oh, actually the Hollow has a very tragic, backstory or something like that. So also finding out who are all these other families that have association with the Hollow. It seems like these things are probably like passed down from generation, because obviously the Hollow is like extremely old. So maybe like when it was all said and done, because the way Dominic made it sounded like Vincent's, like specifically Vincent's family, or maybe I think he was probably talking about New Orleans witches in general, probably like the ancestors sealed this thing away a long time ago. So, but it's now up to, like, I mean, it could be interpreted either way. Either he's talking about New Orleans witches, or specifically Vincent's family sealed this thing away, and now he ended up being the one that kind of set it free. To basically kind of pointing, like, the fact of the matter is, you want to point fingers at people being guilty and stuff like that. It's like, none of this would happen without you, which obviously the guilt is still kind of eating away at him and stuff like that. Once again, it's like him saying, like, he'd rather join up with the people he hates the most, the Michaelsons, doesn't trust and don't like them, but joining up with them is the only option to get such a thing. So, but, the devil versus the devil you don't. So, I'm very curious to see what other families are tied to this. Are these families that had something to do specifically with sealing the Hollow away? Like, for example, like, was it people in Haley's family that sealed it away, or was it just people within Haley's family that were chosen to protect this set pieces? Like, it does seem like maybe it's a situation where maybe every group got one, like like maybe some witches got one piece, maybe wolves got another, and then vampires got another. Like, maybe it's divided up like that, or specifically trusted allies to who originally sealed the hollow away to begin with. So overall, a very good episode, and I'm very interested to see how things play out in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.